The one and the only Jeffrey Benson, Circa Sports, joining us here on the Bostonian versus the
Oh,
Book.
God.
What is going on, Mr. Benson? How are you on a Friday?
Legend.
Welcome. Good hat change, Mr. Sharapan.
Uh,
Looking
you know,
good.
yeah, we came prepared. This is one of the OG hats. This is from opening
Yeah.
day, actually opening day forever. And now you're changing the game every day. Jeffrey Benson 12. Tom Brady wore 12 and he's a legend, but you have 12 in the Twitter at Jeffrey Benson 12, a legend in your own right. JB, how was the Super Bowl, my friend? I mean, it's only the biggest book in Vegas with the biggest screens and take the biggest bets. How did things go over there on Sunday last
Yeah,
week?
yeah, it was good. Obviously, the game went well for us. We did well to the game. The final score, if it had been a few points less, that probably would have been better for some of the props that we
Yeah,
were
yeah,
offering. But
yeah.
anytime you get a 38-35 score, you're going to see a lot of yeses cash, and you're going to see a
Yeah.
lot of overs, come into play. So from the prop perspective, still pretty happy that we won there. Won to MVP and things like that.
Yeah.
So overall, given the final score of 38-35, was pretty happy with how things ended. From a future book perspective, obviously we took a pretty big bet on the Chiefs at 10-1 preseason. So from a
Mhm.
future book perspective, wasn't the best result, but we were able to mitigate a little bit with the game, and then obviously with the way props and Circa Squares and the rest of the novelty bets
Uh,
that we offered
we
worked
had
out.
we had on Mike Palm down at the Super Bowl at Media Week, and he kind of told us a little bit about the future book position. Remind the people, Jeffrey, of what you and the boys and everybody did with the number to open up the Super Bowl, because I think, it got kind of, lost a little bit in the shuffle of Super Bowl week, but what was the opening number for Super Bowl Sunday at, Circa Sportsbook?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, to preface it before I get into it, you have to, openers don't really mean shit in this
Thank
business.
you.
Matt opened an WNBA All Star game, total 60 points off, and we had a U.S. integrity alert. So, I mean, when you think about it, openers don't mean a whole lot. And then obviously when you think about the Super Bowl, we were taking 20 dimes on the opener, and we're taking $1 million at post. So you write a few 20 dime bets, and you work in, you get started on the price discovery. So for us, Chris Bennett, who's our director of risk, he does our NFL numbers. His
Mhm.
number was Kansas City minus 2.5 and the
Yeah.
total of 51.
Mhm.
I don't make totals, but my number was Kansas City minus 2.5 as well. I had KC rated the best team all season in football. So,
Mhm.
we opened 2.5, we opened 51. When we opened, the market was Philly minus one or maybe pick.
Mhm.
And the total was like 49 and a half.
Yep.
And, the market shat on our opener. But, in the end of the day, we wrote Philly money pretty quickly.
Yep.
Went to Philly minus 2.5. And we felt good about, what we wrote and where we were and the
Mhm.
bets that we saw. And then obviously from a total perspective, we were about a point and a half higher than market, and they bet
Mhm.
us under. So, from that perspective, that worked out pretty well too.
You guys at Circa have taken what has happened in either offices or with people online and taken it to the book. You guys have done the Survivor now. It's grown exponentially. You guys did Circa Million now, and that's continued to grow year over year. Now the Squares comes in, something that most people have done in some form or fashion at a party or two, and now brought it to the book experience. How are you guys finding that to be? What's the discovery process with that? And how much success did you guys have with the interest from the public coming in to bet that?
Yeah, I mean, people love the squares. Obviously for the non-traditional gambler, that's something that as you alluded to, they play at their local Super Bowl party, at their local bar, things like that. So it's certainly something that they're used to, and it's a interesting and novel concept in the fact that they can pick their own squares and not necessarily
Have their
get
square picked for them.
correct, not necessarily have the dreaded 5-5 if they don't want it or
Oh,
things like
five
that.
five
So,
sucks.
or 2-2 in the first quarter, things like that. So,
Yeah, that's not good.
um,
4-4
yeah,
hit, though. 4-4 hit. which
Yeah,
is
I mean,
kind of weird.
obviously, when you have, 24, 24, 24, 14, 14, 14, things like that,
Right.
you'll definitely have some more outs, particularly as you get later into the game, when the scoring increases. But yeah, the overall popularity from the public was great. We've seen the right increase on the Circa Squares, every single year, which has definitely been something that's been great. And I think kind of the funny thing that you see when you're behind the counters, you have a lot of people come up, whether it's bar owners or business owners, and they say, give me $5 on every square in the first quarter, give me $10 on every single square, on the board, things like that. So, a ticket writer may end up, when all is said and done,
Oh,
writing, 400 square tickets or
oh,
things like that. So they
oh.
certainly, they certainly got, their workout, but, it's really cool to see. I had a guy come in and he bet $100 on every square in the first quarter. Gave me, threw me two 5K orange chips and called it a day.
It's the best that you
It,
just
it's
don't
it's
know.
it's
It's
incredible.
it's a lot of paper. You go through a lot of paper coming out of those machines when you write all those tickets, Jeffrey. But you guys will be all right with the paper. Speaking of paper and looking forward, okay. Talk about what goes into putting up next year's odds. Like, because the ink isn't even dry in the game. Mahomes gets the MVPs, going to Disneyland, and then boom, everything's up for next season. Who's going to be the champ? It's pretty much the teams in the Super Bowl start 1 and 2. Maybe you bump up Buffalo or San Francisco, but they don't even know who the quarterback's going to
I
be in
mean,
San Francisco. What do
ask
you
the
do with
Rams.
it?
I mean, ask the Rams how well that worked out last year.
Not so good. Not so
Yeah.
good now
So
that you said that. But, like, is there any action on that? People used to ask me that all the time, and I'm gonna ask you because there wasn't really that much action on it. There's not football fatigue, but it's like, okay, I don't wanna tie up the money that long. What goes into putting up those numbers, and do you take any bets on it?
yeah, I mean, obviously Chris Bennett, who's our director of risk, and he manages both NFL and baseball. He does a great job with it. I mean, you're just trying to think of a number of different scenarios as you go into the offseason. What do teams have in terms of cap space? When you look at somebody like the Raiders, obviously they're getting rid
Mm,
of their quarterback and Derek Carr. So thinking about possible destinations for him, when you look on the NFC side of things, thinking about the Green Bay Packers, you know, kind of it reminds me of a couple of years ago when it looked like Rodgers was going to leave and then he ended up coming back and we took a lot of Green Bay money at 25-1 that drove
mm,
that price all the way down. So kind of trying to be as realistic as possible about where you think these star players are going. Where's DeAndre Hopkins for the Cardinals going? What are some of these cap casualties going to be? I mean, when you look at Tampa Bay, they're 50 plus million over the cap. They don't
right.
have a quarterback on their roster. So just trying to put all of these things into play, obviously, in the coming, month, we're going to have the NFL draft and things like that. So
Yeah.
trying to see what teams are going to do, whether you think they're going to be tanking, not tanking, whether you think they're going for it, not going for it. Obviously it looks like the Jets, want a veteran quarterback. Obviously they're bringing in Derek Carr for a visit. They may do something. Woody Johnson obviously has an affinity for Aaron Rodgers and things like that. So certainly trying to put your odds making hat on and try to think about what some of these teams are going to do and ultimately try to figure out where the public thinks these players are going to go.
Right.
And that's really the most important thing. If you
Yes.
can, with Twitter and things nowadays, I think people get a hold of rumors and all these different
Oh,
things, and some of these lines can kind of steam. So maybe trying to get ahead of a little bit of that public perception, and if you can beat somebody, and make them lay 20-1 instead of 25-1, that's certainly going to make your
that's good.
position,
Right.
a lot more profitable and plus EV come next year's Super Bowl. When you go into trying to balance things for the book.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, there's speaking of rumors, by the way, Clayton Kershaw out of the World Baseball Classic. That was just announced. He's not pitching
Oh,
for Team USA.
Jesus.
So he's out. Speaking of rumors, so this morning there's a very large rumor about where the Oakland A's might be looking to build a ballpark. The Rio now is the third option here
Oh
in Las
God.
Vegas.
More
Rob
traffic.
Rob Manfred has said publicly that all conversations have been about Vegas, not about Oakland for the A's. You guys were at a hearing for downtown Vegas. Is it safe to say that Circa would prefer a ballpark to be built in downtown Vegas on the event space versus being built either at the Tropicana site or the Rio site, which is obviously by the Strip?
It's a interesting question. I'm going to see Mr. Stevens at lunch, and I'll certainly pose that. But
God.
yeah, I mean, obviously, I think when you look at the success the Knights have had, you look at the success the Aces have had, you look at the success the Raiders have had. I think building this town, into a sports town and bringing these professional franchises in, it really just helps gentrify everything. And it really,
Yep.
a rising tide lifts all boats. So whether it's in downtown Las Vegas, whether it's on the Rio site, whether it's, somewhere closer here to, maybe the corner of, 15 and Blue Diamond, things like that. I think just getting a baseball team into Vegas, with the success that the Aviators have had, which is the AAA team
Yeah.
for the A's, I think that would just be a boon for the city and something that would be really, really welcomed, citywide.
Speaking of boom for the city, you know where the Super Bowl is next year, right? It's
Uh,
right here in Las Vegas. And I just saw you go, we're both doing the same. People are already asking me, hey, can I stay at your house? Hey, will you pick me up at the airport? Hold on, everybody, calm down. We'll figure that out.
well, you just let the wife go. I mean, so you got a
Mm.
couple of free rooms.
I mean, just for this weekend, just for this week.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
be putting people at my house, Jeffrey. I'm going to bring
The,
them down to the Circa and
the
drop them
papers
off.
aren't signed yet.
No, I'm gonna drop them off in the second level up there and let them overlook the book. Um, are you guys talking about and starting to prepare for what's coming already? Has the Super Bowl discussions even started yet, or is that like now before March Madness? Because you guys do March Madness as good or better than anybody in the country.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, obviously, we'll sit down here in the next couple of weeks, kind of, rehash everything that went into this year's Super Bowl, and then figure out, what that looks like for next year, given that we're going to be the host city. So, obviously, football's king. This is going to be the first Super Bowl Vegas has hosted. I can't imagine how wild and crazy it's going to
Oh,
be, but it gives me a lot of F1 vibes in the sense that you know, blocking off, an entire week of hotel rooms, blocking off all the venues, things like that. It has a lot of F1 vibes to me in the sense that this city hasn't seen an F1 race. This
correct,
city hasn't seen a Super Bowl and things like
correct.
that. And figuring out what that looks like from a hotel and casino perspective and how you can, yield and utilize your hotel and your different venues to throw parties and do all these different things. Like I said, it's going to be a great thing for the city and certainly, awesome for all the tourists who come out and see the attractions.
It's funny. We do events better than anybody. We're set up for it. We're designed for it. We can handle any size of any event, but we've never done a regional final. We've never done F1, and we've never done the Super Bowl. In March, what are you guys expecting? Dave mentioned March Madness. We normally have people come just to watch the games. We've got the games here coming up in March. What are you guys expecting from a crowd perspective at Stadium Swim and just at Circa?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this year when you look at Super Bowl, our obviously handle in the state was a little bit down. There may be somebody that was over the hill that had something to do with that, but
Ugh.
in terms of in terms of handle within the Circa, we were up year over year. So I would anticipate that would lend towards March Madness in terms of seeing our increased growth. Obviously, football is always king, but March Madness continues to get bigger and bigger each and every year. And obviously, when you think about T-Mobile and all these different venues that can host these games, I think just having games in the city and driving people here and kind of mixing the betting with actually watching and going to the games and being a part of that atmosphere is just going to continue to help the right and help the city, overall. And obviously, we've seen the success of the sports teams we have here currently. And I think when you look and you see the events that we have planned for the
Mm.
future, a lot of what the groundwork that those teams have laid,
Oh,
has allowed a lot of these events to become, has come to fruition. So it's great for the city. It's great for gambling. It's great for the hotels and the operators. And like I said, hopefully we can meet the demand that ultimately
of
comes in
course, of
March. And
course. But I mean, talking about events, there's an event going on right now. People are watching, and if you're watching the show, again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow Jeffrey Benson 12 on the Twitter because he's an unbelievable follow. talking about, the ups and downs of the sports book industry and hills and going up hills and down hills and all those other things. Really well done right there, Jeffrey. But also, you guys are the place to go for golf betting. Tiger Woods is playing. Tiger Woods may actually make the cut. He put up a 2 under yesterday. The best prices in the world, if you're gonna bet golf, are right there on the Circa Sports app and at the counters. How's the golf betting been this week with Tiger playing and being close to actually making a cut?
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, what he
Oh,
does for the sport,
yeah.
nobody else can say. I was looking at a picture on Twitter, and it was basically showing Tiger teeing off one at Riv, and there what you could hardly even see grass because there were so many people. And then there was a picture of Phil Mickelson, over in Saudi Arabia playing in the LIV tour, and you couldn't find one spectator. So it really just shows kind of where the game is, and ultimately what he brings to it. And obviously one of my favorite traditions in Vegas is, come Masters week to kind of
Oh, it's the
scroll
best.
through the odds and see which shops offering, 6-1 on Tiger to win win the Masters like it's, 1999 and he's in his prime. So, I may have a tweet or two about that, but
Maybe, maybe.
when you're looking to bet the Masters, you want to find a book that has the best theoretical hold, and what that means for the average listener is, the lower the theoretical hold, the better odds you're going to get as a
Right.
better. And there was somebody who was chirping me yesterday on Twitter, which
I don't believe that.
it doesn't happen very often if
Yes.
you can actually
No.
believe that. But he said he would come down to Circa and bet if we had, a 15% theoretical hold. And I said, well, check our Masters book. It's 15% and dropping. So
Man.
um, crickets on that response. But it seems like we've gotten plenty of other play in the pool, and Jeff Davis, who runs our golf department, he does a fantastic job, and we'll continue to go lower as we get to the tournament. So golf betting at Circa here is thriving, much like events in Vegas. And
Mhm.
yeah, we look forward to continue writing bets, which seems to be the antithesis of most operators in this industry.
Jeffrey, you guys have Bar Canada at the D. You guys have a lot of Canadians. You're Jeffrey. You're Derek Stevens being from almost Canada in in Detroit, in Michigan. What's the hockey betting like right now? Because a lot of people, including myself, are finding quite a
He's
bit of
sold.
success
He's sold,
betting on
Benson.
hockey, and I feel
He's
like there's
winning
more interest right now in
a
betting on
lot.
hockey. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think it really boils down to how the Knights are doing. Given that we're such a hockey centric
Mm,
city, I saw last year when the Knights didn't make the playoffs and when they were having a little bit of a down
mm.
year, we saw less hockey betting than we traditionally saw had the Knights been, at the top of the division in the playoffs, fighting for a Stanley Cup championship. So I think that was really the first year we saw maybe a little bit of a decrease in terms of interest, both particularly in the Knights and hockey in general, just because they had a down year. But given that they're having a good year now, definitely seen some increased interest this year. And yeah, I mean, like I said, we've turned into a hockey city, and betters are certainly flocking to the window, and they love the Knights props and the shots on goal and the player points and things like that. So it's certainly been a fun development. And anytime the Knights are good, that means increased handle for the books and a
Yeah.
win-win for everybody involved.
Um, get Davis on it, with the, Stanley Cup Exacta, please. We promoted that. We talked about it. We bet it ourselves for
You're
the Super
watching.
Bowl. It's a lot of fun. We told everybody, "Look at circus prices and look at the rest of the world." Anytime now would be good. If you want me to text Jeffrey Davis myself, I will, but let's get to work on that Exacta. Last one for me, because I know you're a busy guy and you probably gotta go get on Twitter and fight some battle with somebody or some shit somewhere. What's it like to have a parody account of
Oh,
yourself on Twitter? Because I don't know who this person is, but I cannot believe that you have a parody account on the Twitter space.
My mom didn't really think I'd made it in the industry until I showed her that account, but she's now able to express some good sentiments to her friends that her son has made it in the industry.
That is phenomenal. Jeffrey, thank you for the time, man. Awesome to have you on. We'll do it
Pleasure.
again very soon, all right?
Thanks, guys.
That
the
is Jeffrey
best.
Benson at Jeffrey Benson 12
Circle.
from Circa Sports.